Over 5 million Americans use wheelchairs for mobility, but manual wheelchair users are at high risk for injury.
Because these people are using manual wheelchairs in a way that's unnatural to our arms or overuse, about 90% of them will develop shoulder pain and pathology.
Leading to a collaborative team science research study
to help try to tackle this problem, knowing that having healthy arms, especially for those that need them for mobility, is really their key to full quality of life.
Especially for kids in manual wheelchairs.
Patients who have been using a wheelchair essentially their entire life.
Discover Shoulder the Load, a manual wheelchair user research study, inside this edition of CTSI Discovery Radio. Welcome to CTSI Discovery Radio. I'm your host, Brian Belmer. CTSI Discovery Radio is brought to you by the Clinical and Translational Science Institute of Southeast Wisconsin. The CTSI is a consortium of researchers, doctors, scientists, and others representing 8 institutions, including the Medical College of Wisconsin, Milwaukee School of Engineering, Marquette University, the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee, Children's Wisconsin, Froedtert Hospital, Versity, Blood Center of Wisconsin, and the Zablocki VA Medical Center. The CTSI works collaboratively across all of our member institutions. Our mission is advancing health through research and discovery. Consider that the average manual wheelchair user performs approximately 2,500 pushes a day for their daily mobility. That doesn't take into consideration the use of their arms for lifting themselves, other objects, and additional upper body use. So imagine the wear and tear on a manual wheelchair user's shoulders alone, just from living their everyday life. Then imagine that same wear and tear on a child that uses a manual wheelchair. Fortunately, a team of researchers and physicians in our area are conducting a study examining this in hopes of discovering ways to treat and, better yet, prevent shoulder pain and injuries for manual wheelchair users, especially for pediatric patients. Today, we take a closer look at this collaborative team science study by first hearing from Dr. Brooke Slavens, Richard and Joanne Grigg Professor of Mechanical Engineering and Director of the Movement Analysis for Biomedical Innovation and Technology Laboratory, commonly known as the Mobility Lab, at the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee. As its director, Dr. Slavens gives a brief overview of exactly what the UWM Mobility Lab is.
We're an academic research laboratory of which I'm the principal investigator, lead researcher. Our mission is to advance rehabilitation research to improve health and function of people with disabilities and also those that may have musculoskeletal impairment, such as carpal tunnel syndrome or rotator cuff tears.
The Mobility Lab utilizes a variety of technologies and modalities in their research.
Motion capture, like what's done for movies, we use MRI and ultrasound together with collaboration from the Medical College of Wisconsin. We also are able to use wearable sensors together with AI to look more closely at muscles and strength as well.
By combining all of these together, the Mobility Lab is able to get
a profile of how are individuals moving during their different daily activities to help guide clinicians as well as the patients on how to best prevent injury across their lifespan using these different experimental and computational approaches.
And for all of their excellent research work, the Mobility Lab is notably strong in a particular area.
Our specialty is really in assessing and preventing shoulder and wrist injuries, secondary conditions that are very common in manual wheelchair users.
As a mechanical engineer, what inspired Dr. Slavens to make motion analysis and rehabilitation her research area of focus?
I've always been drawn to healthcare, and I've always loved learning about our bodies and how to stay healthy and active. So I think that's what drew out my passion for looking at movement analysis and rehabilitation.
Her interest was sparked by personal experience.
I've had injuries myself from different sports and other activities over my lifespan, and I've also seen family members that need rehabilitation and how much that can really help improve and change your life,
while drawing inspiration from others.
I've also had some terrific mentors along the way through my undergraduate work and through graduate school that really inspired me. They had introduced me specifically to these technologies such as motion analysis and how you can apply that with other new techniques through engineering to solve complicated healthcare problems.
And she is particularly fulfilled when
that has a direct impact for the patient as well as for their families to really be able to change their life for the better.
Which she certainly hopes is the case with her most recent research study, focusing on secondary conditions of people who utilize manual wheelchairs for mobility.
It's very specific as it sounds, and after learning motion analysis in the different ways we can apply it, individuals that are assistive device users was really the area that I got into.
Before getting into more specific details of the study, Dr. Slavens shares some vital background perspective.
I got started by working with kids with spina bifida and looking at crutch-assisted gait. Patients use all different assistive devices, including wheelchairs. The individuals using wheelchairs are actually a really large amount of people in the U.S. with over 5 million, so it's a huge demographic.
The problem is, it's a huge demographic at high risk for shoulder injuries due to their overuse in everyday life.
Because these people are using manual wheelchairs in a way that's unnatural to our arms for overuse, about 90% of them will develop shoulder pain and pathology.
What exactly does Dr. Slavens mean when she refers to secondary conditions?
Secondary conditions refers to anything that would impact the health of those joints. So shoulder pain as well as rotator cuff tears and impingement are primary aspects of these secondary conditions that we're talking about. Shoulder pain occurs in over 90% of adults. In children, it's really unknown.
And that's highly significant to her research study. We'll get to that in a moment. But first, she continues.
For rotator cuff tears and pathology, we know this occurs much earlier in manual wheelchair users than in a general population, with studies showing rotator cuff tear prevalence of up to 70% compared to around 15% in a non-manual wheelchair user population. So it's quite significant, higher risk for these secondary conditions of their shoulders.
Leading Dr. Slavens and her collaborative research team
to help try to tackle this problem. And it kind of goes back to knowing that having healthy arms, especially for those that need them for mobility, is really their key to full quality of life.
Dr. Karen Goodfriend is an associate professor and associate residency program director, Department of Pediatric Physical Medicine and Rehabilitation at the Medical College of Wisconsin and Children's Wisconsin. Dr. Goodfriend is also the primary physician working on this study, who shares some of the specific physical and musculoskeletal conditions participants in the study are impacted by.
The primary conditions that the subjects have in this study were spinal cord injuries, whether congenital, so something like myelomeningocele or spina bifida, or a traumatic spinal cord injury that happened during their childhood.
Exactly how important is good shoulder health for our manual wheelchair using population? Dr. Brooke Slavens.
Shoulder health is critical central to everything we do throughout our day. Think of getting ready this morning and going to work or going to school, playing sports. Maybe you're going to the gym later. You know that you need your arms for all of those things. So the list kind of goes on and on.
Also, take into consideration
manual wheelchair users also need their arms to move them from place to place. For them, their arms are their mobility mode in the same way that others would use their legs. So it's super important that their arms with their shoulders, elbow, wrists stay healthy and pain-free for them to have the quality of life, preserve their independence, and have full community participation that they would want.
Plus, there are specific challenges and risks that pediatric patients face compared to adult patients in manual wheelchairs. Dr. Karen Goodfriend.
There have been a lot of great advances in electric or power wheelchairs, and we do have patients that utilize both. Power wheelchairs tend to be bulky, very heavy. They do require modified vehicles for transportation. And then you are also dealing with the issues of charging batteries and the issue of breaking down.
As mentioned, it's far less known what impact manual wheelchair overuse has on children compared to adults, which explains why this is a primary focus of Dr. Slavin's research study.
Our team is well positioned to be tackling this question with children. The work that we know, especially studying their shoulder and wrist pain, is basically understudied. So our team is kind of the first to tackle that, to try to answer that question of, are they as affected as adults?
The focus on pediatric patients is especially important because
we have more information on adults. We know that over 5 million people in the U.S. are utilizing wheelchairs, and 90% of those are utilizing manual wheelchairs. In the adult population, we have a lot of information on the prevalence of rotator cuff injuries in these populations, and the prevalence is much higher in patients who are utilizing manual wheelchairs versus non-wheelchair users.
However, information is extremely limited when it comes to
patients who have been using a wheelchair essentially their entire life, and what that impact is on their development of their shoulders, their shoulder stability, and what that does in the long term. Because these patients may be using a wheelchair, for 50 or 60 years, as opposed to someone who started using one in their 50s or 60s.
Dr. Slavins adds another reason the study specifically focuses on children.
We believe that they should have more attention because we know that they're different than adults. We know that their pain might be less, but some of our early work has shown that the motions and the forces that are placed on their joints for mobility are comparable to adults,
suggesting that children using manual wheelchairs are also at risk for shoulder injuries. In fact,
some of our findings that are coming out have shown that around a third of them do have pain and pathology that have been identified.
What other injuries are common risks caused by the overuse and repetitive movement involved in manual wheelchair use, particularly among children?
You can get repetitive use conditions or injuries throughout the upper extremity. So you can also see it in elbows, wrists, and hands as well. And patients who are dealing with this often utilize their arms for more than just propelling a wheelchair. They use their arms to allow them to transfer in and out of a car or in and out of bed or in and out of a dining room chair. So they rely on their upper extremities for a lot.
Now, you might think, why use a manual wheelchair at all? Why not use an electric-powered wheelchair to avoid injury?
I think this is a great question. There's a number of different reasons why a manual chair might be a better option. Some of the benefits with a manual wheelchair is you're getting benefit of exercise. It's a workout. If anyone is a wheelchair user, you know that it takes a lot of stamina to use a chair throughout the day.
There have been a lot of great advances in electric or power wheelchairs, and we do have patients that utilize both. Power wheelchairs tend to be bulky, very heavy. They do require modified vehicles for transportation. And then you are also dealing with the issues of charging batteries and the issue of breaking down.
Whereas manual wheelchairs
really kind of become an extension of the patient. They're lightweight. They allow more independence. This is something that can be often taken apart and put into a standard vehicle. All of these things that really increase a patient's independence and allows them to do the things they want to do in life.
And there are other benefits.
It's an affordability issue as well. The cost is cheaper, and they're also more streamlined, easier to maneuver through different spaces. That can be a challenge for individuals.
And perhaps a less obvious reason being less obvious.
There's certain perceptions of individuals in chairs, and in talking to people, they prefer to be less seen. And the power chair being bigger and bulkier and heavier, people notice more as well. So that can kind of affect their confidence in their daily life.
Dr. Slavin says studying shoulder injuries for manual wheelchair users, especially in kids, is particularly rewarding.
Studying pediatrics is so rewarding for a multitude of reasons, but one of the primary reasons that we're really trying to help pediatrics is because there's currently no clinical guidelines based on age.
The vast majority of research in this space done in the past
was done with adults and adult males. So we're really missing the mark on understanding what's needed to take care of the children.
Because, as she reminds us,
children are not just small adults. They're still changing. They're still learning. They're very adaptable. If you think about a child that sustained a spinal cord injury, they're going to be using the wheelchair much longer than someone who's injured as an adult. So I think it's even more critical that we really understand the overuse and repetitive movement to shoulder pain and pathology and protect long quality of life.
But there are challenges in studying kids versus adults.
Not all wheelchair users have training to begin with. They're fortunate to have training of any kind. The guidelines and trainings that we have evidence for is based upon adults.
And when you try applying training guidelines designed for adults with children,
children tend to be more variable in their movement, and a lot of the guidelines recommend using one arm motion or arm pattern. And we've been studying how using different arm motion may be preventative to get out of the overuse and repetitive movement.
Dr. Goodfriend says,
for some of these children, this is just something they've done their whole life. There really wasn't training per se. It was just how they developed the skills of mobility. That is a challenge in pediatric populations. Kids kind of just do things to get where they want to go, where it's not a particularly trained activity.
Compared to someone who comes to need a wheelchair in adulthood.
With adults, if this is an acquired condition, there is a period after an injury where there's a more intense rehabilitation phase where there may be more focus on mechanics or on developing appropriate skills for pushing a manual wheelchair.
Dr. Goodfriend also says working with young children can present challenges.
Working with children can always be a little bit unpredictable. Sometimes attention span and enthusiasm can wax and wane a little bit during a session. That being said, I think these patients and their families are excited when people are interested in things that impact their children. I think they often feel forgotten about. So when there is an opportunity to look at things that impact their life, they're very enthusiastic and willing to cooperate.
She characterizes the enthusiasm of teen participants a bit differently.
As soon as you get to the teenage age range, they really do understand the value of this. They realize that this could impact independence and their ability to do the things that they want. And I think that really helps them stay focused in what we're doing for the research.
And they understand this research will impact and benefit others.
Community education and that community involvement has brought them together as a group where they understand what past research has done to benefit their lives, and they understand how what they're doing now could benefit kids who come after them.
All that said, not only kids are participating in this study.
We're studying individuals across the entire lifespan. So we're recruiting individuals as young as 6 all the way up to age 75. So we're actually doing some comparisons between the kids and adults as well.
As far as how many participants are part of this study,
thus far we have 83 participants in our study. We concluded the first phase of our study, but we're going to be starting the next phase and adding additional research questions that we want to tackle, moving from the shoulder into the wrist as well to look at carpal tunnel syndrome prevention. So we're going to be enrolling participants in the next couple months.
what exactly does participation involve?
For any participants that are interested, we have some parts of the study that can be done remotely with questionnaires on pain, function, what and how pain interacts with their day.
Another component of this study has participants coming to the UWM Mobility Lab.
And they're able to complete some motion capture with a marker setup while they're propelling their wheelchair. We also have some new marker-based methods where you don't have to have sensors placed on your body and we can just use cameras to sense their position. We're also capturing different images of their shoulder and wrist using ultrasound imaging that's in-house with Dr. Goodfriend.
From the clinical perspective, Dr. Goodfriend acknowledges that
usually involves a clinical exam looking at strength and range of motion and general mechanics. It then involves a session in the motion analysis lab where they do the technical piece looking at the different mechanics of the joints, utilizing the instrumented wheels for their wheelchairs, and some different activities to really look at what they're doing.
study participants will also undergo
MRI images of the wrist in this next phase. So that's done at the Medical College of Wisconsin Center for Imaging, right across the street from us. In addition to that, we take some strength and range of motion measures to look at the health of the joint.
total amount of time being part of the study.
In all, it's around 4 hours of total participation, both in the lab and outside of the lab.
Can participants already have shoulder pain from manual wheelchair use?
We're including anyone, whether you currently have pain or do not have pain. One of the questions we have is understanding why do some people develop pain? When does pain develop? So by including participants with and without pain, we're working towards answering that question as well. So it's open to anyone who's a manual wheelchair user.
The idea is
to really look at both, to try and compare if there were differences in mechanics or what the findings were within the joint between patients who do have declared shoulder pain and those who don't.
for those who do not suffer shoulder pain.
Something that we're doing with machine learning is to be able to apply different prediction models to be able to predict what risk factors lead to injury risk and understanding what type of risk do you have. So our goal is really to help alleviate and prevent pain. Getting ahead of it is really the major goal for this.
She further explains
How we're using machine learning is to develop profiles of different clusters of individuals based on their shoulder pain, pathologies, maybe on their age, duration of wheelchair use. Some of those individuals may progress to have pain. Others will not have pain. So there's all these different groupings of individuals.
machine learning will help her research team better understand
What underlying factors are leading towards being in one group versus another?
once they know that,
intervene with machine learning across the field of rehabilitation. So I really see it as a promising tool that will lead towards personalized and preventative care. It will help the clinicians and the patients.
Is the idea to find universal solutions or individualized solutions based on each patient's specific needs?
I think it would actually be both. If we could find something universally that helps provide a framework to prevent or at least to minimize shoulder pain, that would be fantastic. But again, with these patients, there's always individual needs that I believe would require more of that individual fine-tuning based on their needs.
Could this research also impact the design of wheelchairs themselves?
Absolutely, it will help us to design better chairs. New designs with better materials, more embedded sensors in them, more integrated feedback and biofeedback will be key in some of the new wheelchair designs.
And wheelchair design for kids can be a challenge because although kids grow,
wheelchairs don't grow with them. So need is out there for modular designs or chairs that can be more easily adjusted. So the new materials, hardware, and sensors can really help change that for the better.
With phase 1 of the study complete, Dr. Slavens notes significant findings for child manual wheelchair users. Among them,
we've been able now to answer the question of, do they have pain and pathology? Anecdotally, many thought they probably would not, but we've found that around 40% of them have been shown to have some type of shoulder pathology, with their rotator cuff being the primary concern of the shoulder.
Perhaps paving the way for
a longitudinal study with another group of participants to understand and follow them over a longer period of time to really understand that onset and progression of pain and pathology.
Dr. Goodfriend is equally encouraged.
It's early in the process, but I think the study really suggested that there is a relationship between the manual wheelchair biomechanics and the developing shoulder joint complex. So looking into clarify what those influences are and how they are really impacting that development.
If you're someone who does rely on a manual wheelchair for mobility, please understand there's
great hope for change to happen and positive outcomes for prevention of secondary conditions in manual wheelchair users.
And be absolutely assured that this is research work Dr. Slavens and Dr. Goodfriend are invested in, both professionally.
I want the patients I see to do the things that all children do and allow their families to realize their kids can do all the things that parents hope and dream for their children.
And personally,
this study is so important to me. I feel like it's changing their daily life for the better, which in the end, that's what my goal is.
And what a great goal it is. That's all the time we have for this edition of CTSI Discovery Radio. As always, thanks to each of our guests for appearing on today's show. Dr. Brooke Slavens and Dr. Karen Goodfriend. I hope you've discovered something by listening to today's show. And I'm doubly hopeful you'll join us again next time. CTSI Discovery Radio airs the third Friday of every month. Make an appointment on your calendar and join us for each episode. On behalf of the Clinical and Translational Science Institute of Southeast Wisconsin and all of our affiliate partners and members, I'm Brian Belmer, wishing you happier, healthier days ahead. For more information about research or to listen to the podcast of this or any of our shows on demand, please visit our website at ctsi.mcw.edu. CTSI Discovery Radio is written, produced, and hosted by Brian Belmer in collaboration with WMSE Radio. The CTSI and this program are under the direction of Dr. Julie Freed.